Welcome, everyone. It is very excited to sit behind your webcam with the first webinar that you have organized yourself, and then you suddenly see that the people that have subscribed or come. I'm going to share some of my thoughts with you this 30 minutes till 45 minutes. At the end, there is some opportunity to ask some questions. Let me share my screen again, and then we start with what I wanted to share with you. Okay. Now, we are Dirata, and we are a small company in the Netherlands that train project managers, and leaders in a pragmatic way to make a difference in this world. And today the topic is the Agile Leadership Challenge, because I think that whenever there is a time that there is a challenge, it is now at this very moment. Now, let me first tell you a little bit about myself, then you know how I work, and you also have an idea how this presentation, this lecture came into existence. I've coined the name, my profession is knowledge alchemist. And there is a simple reason for that. When I thought about that name, when you Googled it, you find not so much hits. So I think this is a good niche, but it actually does really make a point for the way that I'm working. Let me use a metaphor. The alchemists, they were trying to make gold from other materials, from lead. And what I try to do is to make gold from different areas of knowledge, from different concepts, from different ideas, from different visions, and I combine them. And this is what I mean with knowledge alchemy. And then when you look at the alchemist kettle, is brewing, and I compare the alchemist kettle with my brain. So actually, these are some of my heroes. These are people that have influenced me in one way or another. So the ideas that I have, they're not new ideas. They're just combination of old ideas. And you see in the middle, you see a black square with a red cross. And sometimes I cancel people because I came to the conclusion that they were once in a time nice ideas, but actually they're not really working anymore. But a lot of what I'm going to tell has to do with some of the authors that you see here on the screen. And when you get the presentation, I would really advise you to pick some of them and to read, because knowledge is the experience of other people. Now you can try to work it out yourself, and then you put yourself on a disadvantage, because there have been so many people on the face of this earth during the centuries that have come up with very good ideas, and most of the answers that we need as agile leaders in this current time frame are already there. You only need to find them, and you need to combine them. Now, this webinar is an experiment, because one of the things that I like to do is to do lectures, and then this Corona thing came around, and there were no audience anymore. So now you can do two things. You can start complaining and asking for money from the government, but you also can look, well, perhaps there's another way that I can be of value to people. And that's why I thought, well, let's do a webinar, and let's do it in daytime. So people have to sacrifice some of their time and then you can see the amount of people that that come up, whether or not there is a market for it. And this first experiment, for me, I think, well, we have some market there. You see my my contact in the bottom. You can link with me, or you can send an email to the EA when you want to be informed for other webinars that we are planning to do. Now, Agile, does it work? Does it work? I must make a confession. I'm a late adapter of Agile. I'm a very late adapter. When all people are enthusiastic about something, there's something in my character that opposes to that. And I think, well, when everybody thinks it's good, probably it's not good. And this is something that has to do a lot to do with my character. So I was a late adapter of Agile, I think about 4 to 5 years ago, and then I start studying. And the way I do that is by doing a knowledge alchemy, so reading and listening to people. And I found some very disturbing things I found out. Now, one of the things is the enormous amount of books that are written about Agile frameworks. This is amazing. And one of my favorite, well, I have a lot of favorite philosophers, but one of them is Martin Heidegger. And he said, so one of the things he said, there are no books written about a hammer, because a hammer always works. And this is an intriguing thought. Why is it necessary that there are so many different books about Agile? Why is there a market for so many books on something that should be so great, so good? There's an author in the Netherlands, Henny Portman. He is collecting Agile frameworks, and in his last book, at least the edition that I have, he counted 34 Agile frameworks, and I'm sure this is not the final number. There are many, many more. So is an Agile framework, is that a hammer? Is that something that works? And this makes me, this set me on a quest to think about now, what is it Agile, and how can we become Agile? What do we really mean by it? And the quest should be a simple answer, not perhaps difficult to apply in your life, but it should be something simple and not something with 300-400 pages. Now, there is a tremendous maze of what Agile is, and there are really very fundamentalistic Agilists. One of the things that I noticed is that there are many Agile people that they do have an Agile mindset, but they don't have a mindset that is Agile. And I think this is because something I will call the unholy trinity. We have managers that hear something and don't know, they have a problem and they want an answer on that. And then they have consultants and they sell you an answer. And then we have authors and trainers that sell you an answer too. We have seen it with in the project management world with several methodologies, and now we see it in the Agile world too. And one of the first encounters that I had when talking to people on my own quest in what is Agile, I talked to a guy that was working for ING, one of the first large organizations in the Netherlands that went out fully blown Agile, and they were already working 6 or 7 years at that point in time when I talked to him. And I asked him, where do you think you are? How far are you? And he said, we're just at the beginning. And this really confused me. You have so many experience and still you are at the beginning. And I think that is strange. I think when something should work after 6 years, it must be impossible to be at the beginning of something. Now, let me philosophize with you about why do we want to be Agile? And I think this slide really covers it. We want to be Agile because we want to be ready for the future. And now I don't think that this has anything to do with digital disruption, you know, because when Corona came, we started to work from home, not before the so-called digital disruption came. And we often think that we need to be agile because a lot of change is coming on our path. A lot of new things are coming on our path. We think about robots. We think about artificial intelligence. We think about a lot of other things. And to be honest, most of the predictions about the future are wrong. I really would encourage you to study the history and look at what people predicted that would go wrong. I think around 1700, somebody predicted that humankind wouldn't survive the next century, but we're still there. And again, there are people that predict, well, we will not survive the next century. I don't know. Well, I do know that I won't survive the next century, but we cannot know. The future is problematic, and still we want to be agile so that we can react to the changes that come on our path. And this is something that is not only for organizations, but this is for individuals. Now, what about just imagine what if your line of business would be in the theater world or in the festival branch, and this whole virus thing came around, and whether or not we have a problem with it, I don't know. Whether or not we do have a problem, and a lot of the things, it seems as if they're disappearing, and we're struggling with that. Now, are you agile? And I want to share two important lessons with you about the future. Now, the first one is, it is not about what is going to change. That's not the issue. Most of us, when we come out of school in our early 20s, we start, when we become adults, we start living our lives. Some of us are settling, some of us are extending their puberty by partying till they are 40, but they're just living their lives and without really paying attention to what is changing in the world around us. And then after some 20 or 30 years, we suddenly start slowing down our lives a little bit and look around us, and then suddenly we see what has really changed. And this is one of the problems that people are facing. A lot of the complaints that civilians have is that our traditions are fading away. But this is something that traditions do. They will fade away. And we have Black Pete in the Netherlands. Well, I think he is already gone, but not everybody knows that he is already gone. And it is important that we realize what is changed without us realizing it. And this takes a different approach at looking to the things that are happening around you. Now, I want to show you two books. The left book, this is a historian, and this guy has done an intense study of the technological changes in the United States, and let's extend it. It can be applied to the Western world too. And he proves with very good arguments that it is declining. It is declining, and this is before the Trump area. But it is declining, and we are telling, in our world, people are telling that a digital disruption is going to change our lives, but there are not so many new inventions. There are a lot of inventions that build on innovations of the past, but these are not that much. One of the biggest inventions that we had were where sewers and hygiene, and that's the reason why we become older. And on the right book, for the non-Dutch speaking, this is the New World Order. This is about China. Now China, the philosophy of the Chinese has been for 4,000 years, we are the center of the earth. And probably they will become. And this is something in the West, we all we that are here and are listening to each other, we have grown up with the idea that the West is dominating, but that's gone. That's gone. And there are a lot of philosophers in the Asian part of the world that are doubting whether or not the Western democratic system will work that efficient. And we're still thinking, we're still living in a paradigm that is not suitable for this time. And therefore it is important that in order to see and in order to adapt yourself to the changes that are coming and already have come, is that you unparadigm yourself. You need to remove every well, I sometimes say, when you don't have a box, there's no need for out of the box thinking. Now the second lesson that I want to share is that don't focus on what will be added to the future, but focus on that what could disappear. Most of us, we think, artificial intelligence. We got robots. Robots are taking over. But focus on the things that are going away, because these are the things that are problematic. These are the things that are problematic. And to help you with that, there is a model that I often use. This comes from one of my heroes. This is from the cultural historical activity theory, and it actually helps you to look at the situation in which you are, and to see where changes are and where and how the changes can change and impact your life. Now the subject and the object, the subject, that is you or your organization, and the object is the challenge that you are facing. So this could be you, and you are facing, let me bring it back, and you are facing a challenge, and you want to have a positive outcome. Now there are 4 categories that can change: in technology, in rules, in the division of labor, and in society. Now, in order to do some kind of prediction, focus on the things that can change, and the things that are in a short time with us will go away sooner. So I predict that the smartphone will disappear before the windmill, because the windmill is there for a longer time, so it will stay longer. But I also predict that freedom will disappear before democracy, because democracy is longer here than freedom. And often we don't realize that. We think that democracy is the same as freedom, but that's not true. And in the division of labor, I think that programmers will disappear before farmers. And the last one, that individualism will disappear before collectivism. So this is one of the things that these are just predictions. These are probable predictions, but I'm not sure. Only the future will show us. Now, when you cannot predict something, how do you cope with that? That is the question. And there are a set of 4 questions that I want to share with you. And these 4 set of questions help you to cope with change, with individual change, and they help you to cope with organizational change. Now, the first question that we need to ask is there a crisis? Because when there is a crisis, you need to respond in a different way than when there's not a crisis. And the second one is, do I need a strategy? Because when there is not a crisis, you can have more time to develop a strategy. And then, do I need to act? You see things happening around you, and sometimes you don't understand these things. Do you need to act? Yes or no? The questions that belong to this part help you with that. And then we have, what's my impact? So what is the impact of the things that I'm doing? And this is a kind of evidence-based action. Now let's look at the first one. When you are in a crisis, you continually ask yourself these three questions. And I can tell you, I have used these three questions during this Corona crisis because that really impacted our way, our line of business. You know, when there is a crisis, most of the companies stop with training people. And when we have a crisis like this, where you cannot have many people in one room, people don't want to have lectures too. So this really, I can still remember the first week when this Corona crisis started. It really scared the hell out of me. And then I start asking, at least every hour, how do I save time? How do I gain more information? How do I limit the damage? This will calm your mind. And there is a saying, when you are shaved, you have to sit still. Now, what I saw that during this, when the Corona crisis came up, I saw a lot of our colleague training bureaus, they suddenly became experts in virtual classes, in virtual trainings, which obviously was a lie because they have never done it before. And it would be a lie to say that if you have always given training in person. So the best thing in a crisis, and this is a kind of counterintuitive because you want to do something in a crisis, but the best thing you can do is to freeze and ask these questions. How do I save time? How do I gain information? And how do I limit the damage? And the funny thing is that these are instructions that you give to your brain, and your brain, your subconscious mind, is starting to work for you. And it gives you clues how you can save time. It gives you clues how to gain more information, and it gives you clue how to limit the damage. Now, one of the things that I came up with is the metaphor of Hydra. Now, Hydra is a mythological creature, and this creature, it is a kind of snake, and whenever you chop off his head, you get 2 new snakes. Now, I'm doing the interpretation a little bit different than the traditional interpretation, but for me, Hydra is my brain, and I come with an idea, and each head of Hydra is an idea. And whenever an idea doesn't work, I made a promise to myself to invent 2 other ideas. So then I started to make a book, and I start making ideas. And just to give you an idea of these webinars were invented like this. These are 64 ideas for webinars. So when this isn't that successful as I hope, I go to number 2, and then number 3, and then number 3, become like Hydra, and get a huge amount of redundancy in coping with the crisis that is ahead of you. Now we are going to talk about a long-term strategy. Now, what about your position in the world? And this is something that you can do as an organization too. But the first question, again, 3 questions. The first question that you have to ask yourself is, what is my value? What can I contribute to the world? My personal definition of agile is that someone is agile when he remains of value for those that are important to him or her. He keeps being valuable. Now, when the world changes, how can you become valuable? How can you, is there something that other people are waiting for? And I think we have to stop. And this is something I think I'm a hardcore individualist. And I realize that this is difficult, but we have to get away from this individual living your passion. No, living your value to those that are important to you. That's the first question. What is my value? What do I have to add to this world? And then the second question is, who do I know? Who are the important people that I know? That can be your customer, or that can be your boss, that can be your colleague, that can be your spouse, or your family. Who are the people that you want to give your value to? And then you make a decision. What do you want? And this becomes your strategy. And then you start implementing that strategy. And continually you ask this question, what is my value? Do I still have value? Who are the people that I know? What people do I meet? And what do I want from this specific situation? And then we start acting. This is about adaptive action. These 3 questions, these are just as powerful as the 3 that I mentioned when I was talking about crisis. What do I see? There are things that are happening around you and you don't understand it. You're confused. Ask yourself, what do I see? What does this mean? And what can I do? What should I do? What do I see? What does this mean? And what can I do? And again, the answers, they will come. So don't sit behind your laptop and crunching your head trying to find it. Now just you are programming your mind to look for the answers. And the answers are there. They are there to grasp, but you only need to give your brain the time to come up with these answers. And then you need to work on your impact. A lot of us, we work out of a kind of belief system where you're in. Let me give you an example. I have been training project managers for many years. I've been project manager myself. And to be honest, a lot of the things that we need to learn people for exams, for certifications, are never used in real life. But we still somehow, this is something we really need to do. Why? Because it is taught. No, we need to work on an evidence-based way. What is the impact? So here we have three questions. The first is, what is our plan? What is my plan? And then we make a prediction of this plan. You need to realize that in agile thinking, every plan, every estimate, everything that you intend to do, it's an hypothesis. It's an assumption. You think a lot of people come. You're not sure, but you think that it is. And then predict. So what we did with this webinar, we said, well, let's do it in daytime, and then we think that a lot of people will come. And looking back, reflecting back on that, I should have mentioned a number. And what will it be? And then afterwards, did it happen? So you predict and you see whether or not it will happen. And when it doesn't happen, that's not a problem, because then you have failed, and failure is good, because when you fail, you won't have to fail the second time. Now, let's talk about scaling. scaling agile leadership, these questions are my questions. I can ask, what's my value? What do I know? What do I want? I can act. What do I see? What does this mean? What can I do? I can look at the impact. What's the plan? What will happen? Did it happen? And when there is a crisis, I can ask myself the question, how do I save time? How do I gain information? How do I limit the damage? Now, this is something that can be done on an individual level. But now you're a manager and you want to help people to become more adaptive to change. You can coach them on asking these questions. So we get an us. What is our value? What do we know? What do we want? What do we see? What does this mean? What can we do? What is our plan? And what will happen when we do this plan? And did it happen? And when we're in a crisis, we can ask ourselves in a team, how do we save time? How do we gain more information? How can we limit the damage? And then I would put a time frame on it. So here we have our iterations or our sprints, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, you make a prediction for the coming 3 months, and then you start looking whether or not your prediction will happen. And you will do it again and again, because there need to be a kind of routine in it. Because there is a problem with human beings is that we don't like to be changed that much. So you need to have a kind of structure to really get this working within your team, within your organization. Now, there is an important reason why most agile stuff doesn't work. And this is like a culture is like a swamp with a hardened floor underneath. You will not drown in it, but it's almost impossible to get out of it. And a lot of people really don't understand this concept. You cannot change a culture in a year or 2 years or 3 years. Well, you can try to do it, but then still it's a very hard job, and probably with not that an effective impact on that. Culture is changed step by step by step by step, and very, 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 very slowly. It's like a turtle. It doesn't go that quick. Now, how can we change culture? The behavior of people is very much depending upon their personality and the situation. And personality is something you're born with, and it's fabricated in the 10 to 20 years after that. And then it's more or less kind of solidified. Where you can change a little bit, but not too much. When you look back at your life and when you're honest, you probably must admit that you're still the same person. You still play the same kind of routines, and you can change a little bit. But when there is a crisis and when there is stress, you probably fall back to your original behavior. Now, there has been some research done about how can we change things, and personality is almost unchangeable. So we can work a little bit on that, but it's a hard way. Another thing which help is that the stronger the context of the situation is, the more people are willing to change. This is something that we have done in the last couple of 3 months. We have done this experiment. There was a virus. We told that was tremendous contagious, and that we had a very, 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 very big problem. And we got very big loss. We got the politics. They really took upon this crisis, and whether or not you agree with it, just see it from a perspective, from the perspective of a change of behavior. And most of the people, they adhere to the rules. And still it's now, I just read, I think it was this morning or yesterday, I read an article that there are, of the 17 million people that are living in the Netherlands, there are only 3 million people that that don't adhere to the rules, the 1.5 meter social distancing. And but this will degrade a little bit because the context is not not so good. Look at what is happening in Hong Kong. The Chinese, they understand it, and don't misunderstand me. I'm not promoting that style of leadership, but they understand it when we need a strong context, and then the people will get a big penalty or they will go into jail, and then people will change. Are you happy with that? No, I'm not happy with that. But this is how change will work out. So we need some strong context, some force now. And this is wondering, when we talk about servant leadership, that is something different. That's something different than nice leaders. But that's something for perhaps another lecture. Then we have mindset. Now, the questions that I gave you, is there a crisis? Do I need strategy? Do I need to act? What is the impact? These, when you keep on repeating it, what do I see? What does it mean? What do I have to do? When you repeat it again and again and again, this will change your mindset. And when you do this voluntarily, you become a little bit more agile and a little bit more adaptive to change. And then there is a final one that I want to share with you. And this is about your biology. You cannot do these things when you're unhealthy. So I have added 3 extra questions. Is there enough sleep? Is there a limited amount of stress? And is there healthy food in your body? Because when that's not the case, it will not work. It will not work. Because a lot of what we're doing, a lot of our behavior, they're just conditioned behavior. There's just instinct. Most of our actions are coming out of that we are just animals. We are animals with a large brain, and most of our brain is functioning without knowing us. And there is a small part here on this part of my head, the frontal cortex, that enables me to make some choices. But I cannot make these choices when I do not have enough sleep. So I need at least 7.5 hours of sleep. And I can't sleep when there is a lot of stress. So I cannot add too much stress in my life. And my sleep mechanism and my stress system will not work when there are not the right nutritions in it. So these are important questions too, to be able to live, to come up with the Agile Leadership Challenge. Now, I come to to my last slide. When I told you this is an experiment, it's just to see whether or not there is a market for these kinds of ideas. So, and of course I have some ideas how to proceed. And one of them is, I've been part of a team. Actually, I've been the expedition leader for the International Project Management Association, and we have compiled a guide for agile leadership. And it's really a nice book. It's not that thick, but it really helps you to get the mindset of an agile leader. So I'm thinking about, and this is commercial now, guys, but you have been listening to me for free, so now we do some commercials. I want to do a series of 3 virtual workshops on that guide. So after the course, after this webinar, I will send you some information about that. And there is another idea I have, is a more intense training, adaptive action, as 8 half-day virtual classroom sessions. And both of them, they start with 4 participants. So this is just an idea that I have. Okay, now let me stop the screen sharing. and give you the opportunity to put some, when you have some questions in the chat function. I already see some. When you have a question, you can add it in the chat function, and then I will try to answer them. Yeah, this is good. The historic alchemists did not succeed. Correct. Correct. They became good chemists. So there did come something out of it. Okay, here's a question. What does Agile mean to you? For me, Agile, why did we come up with this whole Agile thought? Because we want to adapt, because we want to change, we want to adapt to change. Now, I was thinking about what do we want to change, to adapt? For who do we want to change? And in a commercial setting, it is for our customers. When you're working for a non-profit organization, it is for your sponsors. When you're working in a governmental organization, it is for civilians. So in trying to generalize that, I came up the important other. So for me, Agile means that I remain of value for those people that are important to me. So I made a decision. Who are the people that are important for me? And I try to organize my life, and I think an organization should try to organize that in a way that you keep on delivering value. Okay. Any more questions? No more questions? Then I do have. Okay, here they comes. Yeah, what is the future of the project manager's role? Perhaps, well, project management is longer with us than Agile. So based on that it's longer with us, probably it will exist many decades from now. In perhaps not in the IT business, but it does. It will contain, and we always need people that will put new things into action. So I think there will always be a future for people that were successful or are successful as project management. So there's always, as long as you're a leader, as long as you adapt to change and don't be that dogmatic in the way that you think that a project should be managed. Agile, there's nothing new about it. It's one of the, well, I'm not completely agree with that. I do think that the Agile way of looking is different than the let's say the traditional way of looking at management. So let me give you one difference. One of the difference would be that the traditional manager tells you what to do, and an Agile manager asks you, what can I do for you so that you can excel? So I do think there are some change. If personality is influential, does it mean that team members need to know each other? I do think that team members need to work together, and then they get to know each other. So working together, then you know better. Okay, let's see. I think that they are Agile. Yeah, I think, let's see. Is it possible to frame people? Well, is it possible to frame people in certain characteristics to become more aware during team interactions? One of the things about Belbin there's no scientific proof about Belbin, none at all. So, okay. I have one thing I want to share in finalizing. So we're almost done now. I want to have a poll, so kind of retrospective. So could you please answer this? And then I'm very happy. Here is the poll. So I would really appreciate your feedback. Okay, thank you very much. Let me show you the, share you the results. So this is what you guys have been giving to me. What we will do is we will send you a link with a presentation if you want to have that, and we keep you updated for new initiatives that we are going to take for that. Okay, thank you very much for attending. I hope to see you soon. Bye-bye.